Popular OnlyFans creator Nala quit the sex work industry recently to get baptized and pursue a relationship with Jesus. But what she found is choosing the straight and narrow path is not linear. They do say that you can take her out the streets, but you can't take the streets out of her. But if anyone can perform a miracle, it's God, right?
But, I love to cheat, so it's not like...
The reason I'm choosing to talk about this topic today is because I think it could be valuable. I think that it touches on some important things that you probably would not consider at face value of the situation. So whether you think it's all just a bunch of bullshit or you feel that sense of judgment bubbling up, I'm just going to keep talking while you hit that like button for me, because some people definitely need to hear this message, especially as we navigate the pitfalls of modern society, social media, and creating online content. Let's get it. So Nala shared her coming to Christ story in a conversation with Michael Knowles several months ago. So yes, I'm late to the party, but being first to the press with the hottest internet tea is not of great interest to me. Anyways, for a little more context, Nala actually grew up in the church as a pastor's daughter, and she was also homeschooled. So it does seem pretty wild that she ended up in the top 0.1% of creators on OnlyFans, raking in millions upon millions of dollars as a sex worker.
I had grossed $9 million.
Now, I, for one, can't imagine that her parents' reaction to their daughter's decisions were very supportive, but I was surprised to hear that her father's were, but that's a whole nother thing to unpack that we're not going to touch today. But I can imagine that there was a lot of social blowback on her and her family because of this whole thing. So this is what I want to touch on. The story of the prodigal son. In a nutshell, the story tells of a man who asks for his inheritance from his father and then goes off and squanders it all on hedonism and debauchery until he is found sleeping in the mud with the pigs. Then the man realizes his foolishness and returns home with his tail between his legs. But his father runs out to meet him with open arms and celebrates the return of his son, just happy to have him home. Nala actually confesses that she was expecting her own prodigal son or prodigal daughter moment.
I expected this change to be like the prodigal son returning, you know? Yeah. In my mind, I was like, I hope that's something like what it's like to return home whole, and not whole. He didn't come back whole. He came back broken, and then he comes back to his home, where he belongs, and got an amazing welcome. I'm not expecting
a delicious fatted calf. Yeah.
Yes. And I wanted that, but it did not happen at all. And it kind of broke my heart a little bit.
The reason I find this interesting is because while we do not know Nala's deepest intentions and thoughts and desires, I think that many of us rebel in our youth in the hopes of proving our parents' love for us, whether we are conscious of that or not. When it seems like we have to follow certain rules in order for our parents to love us, accept us, and be proud of us, and any deviation from these rules will result in punishment, abandonment, or withdrawal of love. This can be psychologically difficult to navigate, especially when we are young.
My mom didn't say a word to me the whole time when I was, they knew I was moving the next day, but didn't say anything to me, wouldn't even look at me. And my dad was just kind of trying to come to terms with it verbally, but I wasn't saying anything because I was like, I don't know what you're trying to work out here, but I don't know what you want me to say. I know you disapprove. I just want to know if you still love me.
Yeah.
But I didn't ask that directly, but the one thing that my mom said before they walked out the door was just I hope you're happy in your endeavors, and then just left, and it broke my heart, truly.
Ooh. Some of us may choose to adhere to the rules and never rock the boat in order to maintain our parents' approval and love, while others might choose the opposite and rebel against all the rules.
You don't own me.
And maybe they don't even necessarily disagree with the rules themselves or the morality of it all. I think that sometimes Our hearts are simply seeking reassurance by testing how thin the ice is. Our hearts are asking, will you still love me and not abandon me, even if I mess up, even if I'm not perfect, even if I don't live up to your expectations, even if I hurt you, even if I choose things that you don't agree with. Even Nala's confession of how she loves to cheat,
I love to cheat, so
further confirms this whole idea, in my opinion. But crossing boundaries to prove that people still love you and forgive you and care about you, or sometimes to prove that no one loves you and everyone leaves, is extremely insecure behavior and has disastrous consequences. And my personal confession is that I'm not saying this from a position of judgment, but my own relatability. Growing up, I had a very performance-based idea of love that I still struggle with today. I associated my parents' pride in me with my ability to play sports or play the piano or to draw, all things that I was very talented at from a very young age. And I don't think I knew it at the time, but I do believe some of the rebellion that I had in my teenage years, where I self-sabotaged while playing AAA hockey, and I quit playing piano, and I quit creating art, and I started getting into behaviors that went directly against the morals that I was raised with. I think that there was a still small part of me that was wanting to know if my parents' love and pride was bigger than all the mistakes that I could make. Fast forward a few years, and this even bled into my love life. I had watched several women get back with guys that were cheating on them and treating them poorly, and a part of me began to associate that level of forgiveness with unconditional love. So when I chose some of the things that I chose, and I was unfaithful with my girlfriends, and they would come back to me, that would validate me and prove that I was loved for a moment, enough to be forgiven. But because the leak was an internal issue, no amount that I could take from others was ever enough. I see it now very clearly looking back, and I definitely was not fully aware of it at the time, and I know it's really messed up. I spent the better part of a decade in really toxic patterns on both sides of cheating and deception, and it did a lot of damage, man. It's from that place that I wrote my first book, Love Isn't, which has been such a huge part of my healing. To know that my mistakes and scars have helped heal thousands of other people. One more thing about me before we get back to Nala. I know I don't talk a lot about my own faith and relationship with God. Part of the reason for that is because I'm hesitant to sound like I'm preaching at people, especially because I don't feel like I have much of a leg to stand on myself. I haven't been a great man, but I know that my faith has been a huge part of becoming a better one. I think that everyone needs to believe in something greater than themselves. Okay, back to Nala. And this is where it gets most interesting to me.
I am so thankful that God truly met me where I was, because I now feel emotions. Like, it was crazy. Like, the minute God met me in my living room, I started feeling like it was crazy, because it was a phenomenon of years and years and years of being numb and then feeling alone. And it was like a puzzle piece with a piece missing. And that piece was like the best part of it, like the actual heart of it was gone. And I had this moment with God where I was like feeling all of this, and I was sobbing in my living room, sobbing. This was after I met Jordan, before we became boyfriend and girlfriend, but I was at my wit's end. I had everything around me. I lived in a 4,200 square foot home, which was like $3.5 million. I drove a Porsche. I had any designer bag that you could want. I have a ginormous closet. I have everything.
How much money do you have at this point?
At this point, I had grossed $9 million.
That is a lot of money.
Yeah. But man, that was the biggest point of all of this, was like, money doesn't matter. It did not bring me true joy. Like, you can be happy, like, oh, I just got a new bag, cool. But that's not joy. Like, the joy that the Lord gives you is like, well, one, he says it's your strength. But the joy that I have now is nothing compared to worldly happiness. Like worldly things will tell you like, oh, you need these things truly, which is crap. Materialistic things are crap.
In my opinion, this is the most interesting part of the whole interview. Going from feeling numb and empty to being able to feel again. I think a lot of people need to hear this. We all cope with our emptiness and apathy in different ways, whether it's through validation, dopamine addiction, narcotics and alcohol, materialism, video games, or whatever else. But what people don't often talk about is the root of this emptiness. Why are we numb? I talked about my own life experience with this at length in a recent video about how I sold my soul to the devil, and I'll leave a link to that in the comments, so watch that video next if it interests you. But basically, when we sell out on our integrity, we cause friction in our souls. We separate ourselves, and with enough friction, a callus begins to form over our spirit, and we become unable to feel it or hear it. The lines of morality, of right, wrong, good, and evil all begin to get blurred, and we become numb in order to protect ourselves from the spiritual pain. We become numb in order to protect ourselves from the spiritual pain that we are in. It's a coping mechanism. This is how I became a cheater, a liar, and a thief in my younger years with very little remorse. I also began to struggle to experience joy and happiness and motivation and positivity. Nothing really mattered anymore as apathy began to take over. I believe the more that you sacrifice on the altars of certain energies or demons or whatever you want to call it, the more power they begin to have over you and your life. We are all doing this, consciously or not, to varying degrees. I think that the spirits of lust and greed have more power than ever before in human history due to the vehicle of social media and access that modern technology provides. Statistically, the average age that a person is being introduced to pornographic images is younger than 13 years old, with nearly half of kids aged 9 to 15 being exposed regularly. So I believe it is no coincidence that sexual sin is currently the widest gateway into the human spirit today. If half of the youth are addicted to porn and lust before they are 18 years old, should it be a surprise to hear a 20-something-year-old OnlyFans model feels numb and has felt that way for years? I believe this is a spiritual wound, and spiritual wounds require spiritual healing, which is what Nala ended up claiming to find in a relationship with God. It's like how Ezekiel 11:14 says, I will give them an undivided heart and put a new spirit in them. I will remove from them their heart of stone and give them a heart of flesh. It's crazy to think that we have girls out here advertising on their social media that they are about to turn 18 so that they can open their first OnlyFans account. I'm pretty sure there's even a referral program where they can get paid if they can get other girls to make accounts and post content. This is literally modern day pimping, but most girls who fall into it will get slapped with a hard dose of reality when they realize they aren't even making any money doing it. The median income of an OnlyFans creator is $100 a month. But I digress. This is not a documentary on OnlyFans. The money part is important though, because people are always looking to external sources to fulfill their inner leaks, which is impossible. No matter how much water that you pour into a bucket, if it has a hole in the bottom, it will always end up empty. I think it was Jim Carrey who said that he wished everybody could experience being rich and famous so they could all understand that it does not fulfill your soul. And I know that that is easy to preach when you are the person who is at the top, and it's blasphemy to the people at the bottom. Studies do show that after a certain point of abundance, more materialism does not increase happiness. But most people will never truly know this for themselves because most people will never experience abundance to the point of becoming comfortable or even apathetic to it. No, most people will live their whole lives as consumers, buying the ideas sold to them of the finish lines that could be the keys to their freedom. Maybe if you have the right body or the right car or the right partner or enough followers, maybe then you'll finally be enough. You're always just one online course away from escaping the matrix, right? And this is something that Nala spoke about as well after earning upwards of $9 million, that all the fame and fortune in the world did not bring her a sense of fulfillment. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? I do believe in redemption, but that does not mean that there are no consequences for the choices that we make. If you commit a crime, you could spend the rest of your life behind bars. If you choose to live a life of hedonism, sacrificing at the altars of promiscuity and materialism, it may pay you in one way, but it will cost you in another. Everything in life has a price. Choose wisely, my friends.
3 years without speaking to my mom. Like, there was absolutely no communication, and except for she did send me a letter, like an email, that was just saying that I had drifted far from God and that this wasn't his purpose for my life.